Tonight, the breaking news as we welcome, I'm David Muir. Tonight, we uncover a story that challenges everything Americans thought they understood about organized crime. For years, we imagined these networks operating far away beyond our borders, hidden in distant corners of the world. But what unfolded inside one quiet Georgia suburb revealed something far more unsettling. A criminal organization able to blend into ordinary life so seamlessly. It walked through the front door of our communities without anyone noticing. The raid that shattered the illusion of safety. Before dawn one morning, the calm of suburban Georgia broke as coordinated teams of federal agents executed simultaneous operations at two locations linked to a local bank director. The first team searched his home, uncovering financial documents and encrypted data suggesting he had been conducting a series of irregular banking practices. The second team entered the bank's upper floor, where they found large quantities of cash organized in duffel bags, hinting at a level of financial misconduct far beyond typical white-collar crime. What emerged was the beginning of a case involving hidden accounts, off-the-record transfers, and routing systems that pointed toward a larger network operating behind the scenes. For investigators, this moment marked the end of assumptions and the start of a complex unraveling. The hidden life of a trusted banker. To the public, the bank director appeared to be a respected professional, calm, meticulous, and deeply integrated into his community. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a double life, shaped not just by personal choices, but by a relationship with someone who carried her own concealed history. His wife, whose background initially seemed ordinary, had family ties to individuals who had once been involved in criminal activities abroad. What investigators discovered was not a dramatic tale of coercion, but rather a gradual and willing slide into misconduct. The banker allegedly began by adjusting paperwork and laundering modest amounts of money, believing he was simply smoothing out financial irregularities. Over time, as the stakes grew and the money increased, his role expanded into a higher-level coordination effort that quietly supported a hidden criminal network's financial operations. A network that reached into public institutions. The most disturbing revelations came from the encrypted communications recovered during the investigation. They revealed that the banker had been communicating with a variety of individuals in municipal offices, local law enforcement, and community organizations. These weren't dramatic alliances, but a patchwork of favors, financial incentives, and quietly exchanged information. Some individuals appeared motivated by greed, others by pressure, and a few claimed ignorance of the network they were unintentionally supporting. But the scale was undeniable. Dozens of public employees, from clerks to officers, had interacted in some capacity with the hidden network's operations. What had seemed like isolated misconduct now resembled a subtle web of influence that thrived in spaces where oversight was weak and trust was assumed. How corruption quietly takes root. The investigation revealed that corruption rarely arrives with loud declarations or dramatic gestures. Instead, it grows through small compromises, favored approvals, overlooked discrepancies, or unexplained payments labeled as consulting fees. In county offices, individuals allegedly fast-tracked permits without verifying documents. In certain law enforcement units, officers were suspected of sharing schedules or administrative details that later aligned with suspicious activity. Even institutions often seen as community anchors, such as schools and healthcare facilities, had individuals whose actions indirectly supported the network's expansion. These discoveries forced investigators to reassess how criminal organizations adapt in an era where technology, digital finance, and institutional vulnerabilities offer new opportunities for infiltration, a multi-state operation to uncover the truth. Realizing the scope of the issue, federal agencies launched a multi-state operation focused not on confrontation, but on gathering evidence, securing records, interviewing witnesses, and mapping the hidden connections that allowed the network to flourish. Across several states, teams executed warrants at storage facilities, office buildings, financial institutions, and administrative centers linked to the case. The effort required cooperation among numerous federal departments, each bringing specialized tools to examine digital transactions, cross-reference financial trails, and interview individuals who had unknowingly interacted with the network. While the operational scale was large, the primary focus was transparency, safety, and the careful preservation of evidence needed for forthcoming legal proceedings, uncovering the digital financial pipeline. One of the most revealing aspects of the investigation came from analyzing digital financial activity. As traditional methods of tracing illicit funds became more sophisticated, criminal networks adapted by turning to digital assets and cryptocurrency platforms. Investigators uncovered patterns showing how large sums of money moved rapidly through digital wallets before being converted into investments, property acquisitions, or offshore accounts. The speed and anonymity of digital transfers allowed the network to operate with efficiency previously unseen in traditional criminal enterprises. This discovery underscored the urgent need for updated oversight tools capable of tracking financial misconduct in an era where digital transactions can cross continents in seconds. How the network embedded itself in everyday life. Perhaps the most unsettling realization for investigators was how seamlessly the network had integrated into everyday American life. Warehouses doubling as legitimate businesses processed goods alongside illicit shipments. Delivery drivers for reputable companies allegedly diverted certain packages. Licensed professionals issued paperwork that appeared legitimate until investigators traced the financial origins. Even educational spaces were unintentionally touched by the network's influence when certain staff members recommended programs or individuals without understanding the larger implications. The criminal enterprise did not rely on secrecy alone, it relied on appearing ordinary. It operated within the routines of hospitals, transportation systems, and financial institutions, where background noise and busyness often hid subtle misconduct. The impact on older Americans. For older Americans, many of whom had lived through national crises, ranging from foreign tensions to economic upheavals, the revelations struck a particularly emotional chord. They had spent lifetimes believing in the durability of local institutions, schools, clinics, police departments, banks, and community programs. To learn that individuals within these trusted spaces had been compromised, even if unknowingly, felt like a personal betrayal. Community centers around the country reported conversations filled with worry, disappointment, and uncertainty. Families who had long prided themselves on civic engagement wondered how such infiltration had gone unnoticed. The emotional impact was not rooted in fear of crime, but in the realization that trust, once broken, is difficult to restore. A nation forced to look inward. As federal analysts compiled the evidence into a comprehensive operational map, it became clear that the issue was not the presence of a criminal organization, but the vulnerabilities that allowed it to blend into the fabric of daily American life. The probe revealed weaknesses in hiring practices, outdated oversight systems, insufficient accountability measures, and a general tendency to assume trustworthiness based solely on familiarity. This was not a crisis born from foreign threats, but from complacency within domestic institutions. Analysts concluded that true national security is not only about borders or policing, but about the integrity of everyday systems, financial, educational, political, and administrative. The integrity sweep that shook local governments in response to the findings. Federal oversight bodies initiated a broad integrity review targeting institutions most closely linked to the compromised activities. Dozens of public employees were placed under administrative review, while others were interviewed about their roles, decisions, or financial activities. Some were exonerated immediately, others were found to have engaged in misconduct, ranging from misreporting data to intentionally bypassing regulations. Small towns temporarily faced staffing shortages as certain departments suspended personnel pending review. Mayors and city councils held emergency meetings to ensure transparency and reassure residents that corrective measures were underway. The focus was not punishment for the sake of public spectacle, but the deliberate restoration of confidence, a system brought to a moment of reckoning. The deeper investigators looked, the clearer it became that the most significant damage was not financial loss or operational disruption, it was erosion of trust. The network had taken advantage of institutions built on the belief that public servants act with integrity, that professionals adhere to ethical standards, and that community members look out for one another. By quietly inserting itself into these trusted spaces, the criminal organization demonstrated how fragile institutional trust can be when vigilance fades. Communities that had long assumed their local systems were unshakable now face difficult questions about oversight, accountability, and the safety of future generations. The road ahead, rebuilding what was lost. As the investigation moved toward its next phase, court proceedings, policy reforms, and institutional audits, the nation found itself at a crossroads. The case illuminated how corruption grows not in dramatic bursts, but through small oversights and unexamined assumptions. Rebuilding would require patience, transparency, strengthened oversight systems, and renewed commitment from public institutions. Federal agencies emphasized that the lesson was not to foster fear, but awareness. A society remains strong not by assuming safety, but by actively protecting it. Americans were reminded that safeguarding communities is a shared responsibility, one that begins with paying attention, asking questions, and demanding accountability from the institutions that shape daily life.